This video, I want to talk about Jon Fitch. He's one of the cage fighters, one of the, persons in the UFC. I just did some info, looked him up a little bit, find out about some of his accomplishments recently, and it says that he's won 25 fights and only lost 3, and he's considered one of the top fighters out there. And I think it's pretty amazing, his accomplishments. And I just wanted to bring him up because I trained with him and I knew him before. He became famous for cage fighting and MMA. He was actually a Purdue wrestler. Went to Purdue University and he graduated in 2002. I attended Purdue from the years of 2000 to 2004. During that time, he joined the martial arts club that I had established at that time. The club was called Fighters United, and the club was basically open to all sorts of different martial artists from all these different styles to join and share knowledge and information. And Jon Fitch at the time did join the club for a short while. I got a chance to know him a little bit. Some of the other members did as well, and we went to some of his wrestling meets, and he was a Purdue wrestler. And at that time, he didn't really have any stand-up fighting experience, and he did join the club to try to get some experience in that regard. Spar with them a few times, train with them for a little while, and he was mainly just a wrestler. Now, I don't know how good he was at wrestling, but basically at that time he was not, not the best out there, but he was really talented, obviously. But to get into the sport of wrestling is very competitive, and there's a lot of talented people out there that people might not know about. And some people go to the Olympics. Basically, there's a lot of talented wrestlers. Now, Jon Fitch, at that time in 2002, didn't have any experience in stand-up fighting. Basically, didn't have any martial arts experience, but he did have wrestling experience. And then now, we're looking in 2011, heading towards 2011, he's considered one of the best fighters. That really indicates something. That indicates that really, to be a wrestler, there's a lot of talented wrestlers out there that people don't know about, that were even more talented than Jon Fitch. But as soon as Jon Fitch turned into the MMA, he was able to apply his wrestling talents into the MMA and achieve worldwide recognition. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because I just want to personally share from my own experiences of how there are a lot of people out there that are hidden, that are very talented, that people just don't know about. And people only know about what they see and what they hear, and Jon Fitch, he has accomplished a lot, so he's recognized from a lot of people as being talented. But as my time, the people that I've met in the club and I train with, there's a lot of unrecognized talents that people don't know about because these people simply chose not to compete. And really, at that time, I did not consider Jon Fitch a martial artist. He was a wrestler. But I've trained with some very talented martial artists through my 4 years in Purdue that chose not to go the competitive route. But they were very talented. Now, and this is just Purdue University. There's all these other schools out there with all these other martial artists out there that are very talented as well, I'm sure, but just don't compete, so people don't really know about them. And, it's just, to me, it's just pretty amazing how you can meet somebody, train with somebody, and then years later, just recently I was at the Walgreens and at Target, and I see a figurine of Jon Fitch. A figurine of him that people could buy his figurines. So he's obviously achieved a lot of fame and status from his success in the cage. Alright, but what I want to state is that really, when it comes to something like the martial arts, there will be people that are very talented, but then they will direct those talents in different ways. Like, for example, there might be very talented martial artists like Bruce Lee that will direct his talents towards film, and through that film people were able to realize and notice him in order to be inspired by him. Through the martial arts, someone like Jet Li was able to direct his talents towards film. Through the martial arts, like Jackie Chan was able to direct his talents towards film. Now with the cage fighting, people are directing their energies towards competitive cage fighting. And my thing is, for martial artists, it should be a peaceful expression. And really, I see that when it comes to cage fighting, it's not really representing the martial arts. More so, I think it's more so representing competitive sports, more like wrestling, more like boxing, more like kickboxing, more like Thai boxing. It's representing combat sport, which is very brutal in nature, very destructive. But as far as the martial arts is concerned, I really don't see that it represents that. Representation in martial arts is more peaceful in nature, and there's definitely an underlying philosophy behind it. You know, and you know, I'm really glad to see somebody that I've crossed paths with, gotten the opportunity to train with and spar with, has become so recognized. You know, and you know, I think that's great. But at the same token, in my opinion, from my experiences in training with the people that I've trained with, I've seen and I've trained with people that are extremely talented, just as talented, if not more talented, than John Fitch, that simply go unrecognized. And really, it's because they are humble with their accomplishments, and they do not exploit themselves in that way to gain recognition. You know, and some of these people, you know, I would consider were my martial arts instructors and masters. You know, people that I learned a lot from during my time at Purdue. Alright, one of them is Davin James. You know, very talented. I would consider him a true martial artist. Alright, another one is Josh Thomas. You know, I would consider him a true martial artist. And out of all my time at Purdue, I'd say those were like the two main ones that I really considered true martial artists. And really, from my expectations of what a martial artist is supposed to represent, there's really not that many martial artists out there. Even with John Fitch's accomplishments, I would not say that's a true martial artist. I'd still say that he's more of a wrestler that has learned martial art techniques to become more proficient in the cage. But I wouldn't consider him a true martial artist. But I would consider, you know, like I said, those two individuals that I mentioned, Davin James and Josh Thomas, would be more of a true martial artist. But they are more unknown because they have not chosen the route of being competitive with their talents in that way. Now, there are other individuals that are very talented that did not have to enter into the ring in order to express the artfulness of martial art. And I would not have to spend too much time mentioning these individuals such as Bruce Lee, Jet Li, Jackie Chan, Tony Jaa, for example, they would represent martial arts, but in film, and they'd have been able to keep their bodies in very good shape. They've been able to demonstrate very sound and proficient technique, and they have been able to retain a very peaceful inner spirit from within with respect and humbleness. And those are all the components that are necessary to be a true martial artist that I see. And there is very few people that will represent that entirely that I see. This is my perspective on the martial arts. People will have different perspectives, but this is my perspective, and not very many people will be able to meet my expectations and what represents a true martial artist. So for example, say if Jon Fitch did not choose to compete, if he chose not to enter into cage fighting, but he still remained very dedicated in his wrestling and in training and stand-up fighting and martial arts, but he just simply decided not to compete, he would still be who he is and be as talented as he is, but he would just go unknown, and not a lot of people would know about him. But he would still be a very talented individual, as he is right now. And that's exactly what I'm speaking about when I mentioned that there are a lot of martial artists out there that are unknown, but they're extremely talented. They may be an accountant to make money. They may work at a restaurant to make money. They may be a pilot to make money. They may be a construction worker to make money. But then deep within their own getaway is when they practice their art, and they're extremely talented in what they do, but simply nobody knows about them. So my thing is, I want to get these people known, at least for people to be aware that these people do exist, these very talented individuals, but simply don't strive to exploit themselves in that way. I met some really talented individuals when I was at Purdue for those 4 years training with those martial artists. And one of the underlying themes about the people that I've met is that they do not feel comfortable exploiting their talents for others to see. A lot of times these people would train in complete privacy, away from the public, and nobody sees them train. But then when you get an opportunity to meet them and train with them, you see how talented they are and what they do. But simply people don't know about these people. And I guess it's like underground talent that's unrecognized. There's always going to be the mainstream talent that is present in the media, and there's always going to be that underground talent. And a lot of times that underground talent is the true talent out there that goes unrecognized. It goes beyond profit. It goes beyond the desire to achieve fame or to get women as sex. It is true love for an art that is just pure and expressed for what it is. And that to me is what true martial art is. It's a true expression of art that is untainted by motivations of profit, of fame, money, recognition. It's uncorrupted. It is true love for art, an expression of it. So I want to give this recognition to especially the two individuals that I learned a great deal from, Davin James and Josh Thomas, for, living the martial arts way, the true martial arts way lifestyle. And in the description section of the video, there are a couple of videos there showing Davin doing his thing, Josh doing his thing, but really I had to really encourage these people to put a little something out there about what they do, but they're not going to be exploited the way a lot of these cage fighters are. But I just want to express that there is a very lot of talented individuals.